This week, we'll have two planets make a last quarter square to Uranus. Two planets in Aquarius make a last quarter square to Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus and Taurus. The last quarter square itself is an incredibly Uranian, incredibly Aquarian signature, which wants you to throw off the precedent of the past. We have to let go of letting go, if that makes sense. We have to, third quarter square, throw off the precedent of the past, but the past precedent that we're throwing off is the idea of throwing something off because it is Aquarius. So we have to throw off throwing things off, which basically means we have to drill down and do more Taurus things, feel the intelligence of our body even more. Because how we think we've been revolutionizing our lives, we've taken that as far as it can go at this point and by the end of this week. If you are interested in doing group work with me, I'm going to offer a little experimental session on Sunday, January 8th at noon Eastern Standard Time. So if you're interested to join me, it'll be an hour. I think I'll have like max 10 people. We'll see how many people actually come up and are interested. I'll just ask $20 to show up and we'll go through everyone's chart. We will not be doing extensive interpretations in terms of content, but what we will be doing is tracking the rulerships. And so you can get a sense of the patterning that's kind of always fractally playing out in your chart. And so everyone will have a few minutes to go over theirs, to say a few things, and then to see other people's play out. Okay. I'll even share with you mine if we don't have enough people. But let's see, I have a Google form below, so fill that out if you're interested. Because we are also now in this very odd 2-week period between like having Neptune in Aries and having Saturn still be in Pisces, it can feel like there will be no resolution. There will be no climax to any of the things we're feeling right now, simply because Neptune, even when it reaches the 29th degree, which won't happen, I think, until next week, but in these final degrees of Pisces, it's not like we're going to get the climax because Pisces doesn't end. We're still in a void. Just because we can see the edges of that void now doesn't mean that void suddenly makes sense. We're going to have a huge shift on the 14th when Saturn steps into Aries. But that's getting ahead of myself. I just want to say there's this whole time, this whole week is very much nonsensical, like non-rational. Like we've been trying to rationalize what's been going on. We've been trying to even make sense of things from a higher perspective, but we're reaching an edge of that as well this week. So the astrology for Monday, February 2nd to Sunday, February 8th. Very, very big week, okay? For the most part, this is because Uranus, which is the planet that pushes us to the edge of our consciousness, pushes us to the edge of our seat, to the edge of our world, externally and internally, that planet is changing directions in the sky. What it means when a planet changes direction in the sky is that that planet is moving the slowest that it ever moves, almost as though it's not moving at all. It's stationary, if you will. And when a planet goes stationary, it pulls all of our focus into that planet because it's not moving, right? Something that is normally in a more dynamic motion is now at a standstill. We have both Mercury and Venus, who have been traveling very close to each other. They will both form a last quarter square to Uranus in Taurus this week. Now, last quarter square, as I said, carries a superiorly similar signature. It's a weird way to put it. A very similar signature to the Aquarian archetype itself. That's because this is the 270 degrees around the chart out of 360. This is the pathway, this is the breakthrough, this is the passage that one planet makes into the final 90 degrees of a relationship with the other planet, which essentially means that most of the journey is finished. And what happens when you're coming to the end of a journey? Well, you start to let go of everything that's come because you truly are just feeling very full, right? You're feeling like it's time. This is the first preempting moments of recognizing, of realizing that, oh, maybe it's time to leave. It's like that time at a party where you get the first little glimmer in your brain that's like, oh, I'm getting pretty tired right now. Um, I'm getting pretty tired. It's probably time to leave. But often we'll push that out at least another 10 minutes, normally another hour, right? So much so that by the time that hour or that 2 hours comes, once we leave the party, we should have left a while ago, we are exhausted. We are tired. Something had to break us through in order for us to get home. Maybe it's this sense of exhaustion that can happen at the last quarter square. And what it wants to do is make space for the next thing to start, the next thing to happen. But it's so that's what's happening. There's an underlying feeling this week that we're done doing something in the way that we have done it. And specifically when it comes to how we express what we subjectively want, Mercury, Venus. And these two planets have been moving together in the sign of Aquarius for a while now. And in Aquarius, this is about how we express what we want in a group, how we communicate our love for someone within like a larger group, a larger network, a larger framework, how we personally are relating to the larger social zeitgeist that we live in, which is the Aquarian mind, okay? That's specifically the Venus-Mercury dynamic that's going on now. And both of them are then going to square Uranus. So what's going on? This means we are letting go of the way that we have communicated about what we subjectively enjoy about our social sphere, about our own consciousness, about our own mind. Okay? And that's just the first quarter square itself. So let's look at then Uranus in Taurus, which again is going direct this week on Wednesday, which means the symbolism of Uranus and Taurus itself, we are so locked in and focused on right now. The symbolism of Uranus and Taurus as a sign is about self-reliance. Okay? Earth, tangible, sensory. Taurus is ruled by Venus, but Venus rules two signs. Venus rules Taurus and Libra. Taurus being the inner face of Venus, Libra being the outer face of Venus. Right now we're focusing on Taurus. The inner self, the self-reliance, the sensory enjoyment of what we do in our lives, why we do it. Fundamentally, it's our survival, biological survival, okay? And sensory reality, the link between our sensory reality and our biological survival, right? Taurus is where we realize we don't want to eat rotting fruit because we will die, right? That's where we have the ick for something and we're like, oh, I don't want that. Taurus is where we have to enjoy our life in order to survive. And I don't mean like it doesn't have to be lavishly, although Taurus is incredibly lavish. But the point with Taurus itself ultimately is about self-reliance, okay? Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. So whatever we thought self-reliance was before 2018 has now been upended almost 10 years. It'll be like 8 years. Uranus is about to leave Taurus. And so we're almost done with this total reinvigorating, reawakening of what Taurus is. Because just as I said earlier, Uranus, the edge of the known. So Uranus pushed us to the edge of what we knew about our self-reliance in every single area of life, especially sensory reality. What we touch, taste, smell, how we enjoy our lives. And this has everything to do with money, with income, but it also deeply is connected to self-worth, how you see yourself, your deservingness. And there's an interesting archetype that always comes up with Taurus, which is this frog in the well archetype. Taurus is so material that it is almost as though it's this little frog sitting very deep in the well of the earth, and it can only see a very small slice of the sky because the well, right? You can only look up from the well. And so you think the world is only so big in Taurus, because ultimately Taurus and the sensory reality that's keeping you alive are based on what you believe you need, based on your beliefs, based on what you believe you can do for yourself, based on how you can rely on yourself. And that self-reliance determines how you're going to show up outside, how you're going to show up in relationships. So Taurus in this roundabout way is actually deeply connected to your beliefs about the world, your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about your capability. Okay. So as Uranus has been moving through Taurus since 2018, we have been pushed to the edge of what we thought we were capable of from the standpoint of how we can provide for ourselves. And depending on where you've been coming from, this is going to look very different. If you're someone who's been very self-reliant already, maybe too self-sacrificing, Uranus and Taurus was going to push you to change, to start relying on somebody else so that you can see your worth, your intrinsic worth differently. Taurus is about where you do not need to go outside of yourself. You don't need to ask anybody else with Taurus. That's why it has this reputation for being stubborn. But then if you have been overly reliant on other people since 2018, then Uranus and Taurus is going to shake up that as well. So again, there's no one way this is going to turn out for you. It's going to really depend on what's been going on in your life. But and oftentimes it's dramatically dynamic, right? Because it's not just so clear as we're always too reliant or we're always like overly self-reliant. You know what I mean? Uranus made a conjunction to my moon many, many years ago. This was totally a wake up in my life, but I thought I had already been, viciously awoken in the years before for other reasons going on in my chart. But this week, Pluto is making an exact square to my moon. And this is a very dramatic transit if you've ever been through it yourself. So I just want to share that. I'm having my Pluto moon exact transit this week. I'll have it happen again over the next several months in this year because Pluto moves back and forth very slowly. But I'm bringing this up because I'm feeling this in my life so deeply and so dramatically, and it's everything to do with the interplay between Aquarius and Taurus. Going back to Taurus as this place of your biology, of your desire, of the self-reliance that keeps you alive again in a biological sense. Uranus has been there since 2018, and so we have been pushed to reconnect with biological intelligence. Okay, Taurus itself is about the intelligence, but is about the biology. But when Uranus goes there, the sparkiness of that intelligence comes alive becomes so much more important in a way that it wasn't previously. And if you think about acupuncture, you think about the meridians of the body, you think about the chakra systems, you think about just your own energetic field of your actual body, somatic therapies. These are all Taurus things. Taurus is ruled by Venus, and so it is a very artistic, very creative, beauty-driven sign. And so when it comes to an artwork, for example, you see an emphasis on the body of art. And this is really in my life what happened when Uranus went over my moon. This was back in 2018 and 2019. I am a painter. I had studied painting, but it was as though I was channeling essentially this framework of intelligence around my painting process that felt as though a light got switched on overnight. There were very large financial changes in my life as well at that time that were absolutely unexpected, but those financial changes changed the direct trajectory that I was on quite dramatically. And again, this is my moon in Taurus. So it is very much so about my connection to my home and my family, but ultimately about my inner self, my ego, my identity, who I had known myself to be up until that point, changing as I found greater and greater identification, greater and greater intelligence in the material expressions of reality, such as painting, such as like art. And it's been a very traumatic journey in the years since that conjunction happened. Taurus, my moon being conjuncted by Uranus many, many years ago. But what I'm finding at the end of this transit is a reconciliation of what money, what materiality, what art all mean. And I think the takeaway that I'm having these days is that it is something that simply exists, okay? It's not more or less important than anything else, but it is alive. It will continue to be alive in the same way every archetype is alive, okay? Materiality is not inert. Nothing is inert, okay? Absolutely nothing is inert. And I think the Uranus and Taurus transit was, at least for me, the time where it's a very strong like magician type of energy where you sense and you feel and you begin to practice or feel attracted to or feel pushed to the edge of, probably rather, manipulating material reality because you find yourself at the edge of the intelligence of it, which means that your field, the field of your own body, you can sense the similarities, you can sense the relationship between your body as an object and the objects around you. The desires, the biological, sexual desires of your body and others and objects and anything that's any system your body is running that it is using to keep you alive, essentially. And so Uranus comes in, and where that part of your chart, where Taurus had been overly crystallized, right? Where you had been that frog in the well, you were only seeing one slice of the sky. Uranus and Taurus, Taurus being one of the most stubborn freaking signs, and I know. Um, Uranus had to shift you out of something, a deep, deep well of comfort. Okay. And so this is something we've already been in for many years, again, since 2018. But what's happening this week in all of this Aquarius season is we have Venus, which is the ruler of Taurus. So there's this mutual reception going on. Venus and Mercury in Aquarius, in Uranus's sign, that wants us to throw off the way that our groups work, throw off the way that our minds work, throw off the way that we are even identifying with our own mind. Okay. Pluto is in Aquarius now. Pluto in Aquarius has already started this ball moving of completely changing what we think we are as a humanity collectively. And this is something that's happening within groups, but is also happening within our own minds. So you can discern based for yourself, like where most of this is happening. But I thought it was interesting this week. It just is so it feels very connected to my chart. The other thing about my chart is that I have Uranus at like 3 degrees of Aquarius. And so I have a natural square between my moon in Taurus and Uranus in Aquarius. And so this is a signature that feels very like on the one hand very normal for me, like the shifting and the moving of the otherwise very stubborn Taurus structure, the very stubborn Taurus emotional mentality, because that square to Uranus says change is inherent for me, right? And so what's been happening in my life is that I'm seeing everything outside of me for maybe the first time in a really long time. This Aquarius stellium, all these actors, all these players, all these this network, right, lit up by the full moon in Leo, where like all of the possibilities, all of the people were visible, all of the actors and players. Here's the other thing, interesting. I'm going to walk through day by day because every day this week we have the moon being ruled by one of these planets in Aquarius. Today, Monday the 2nd, the moon is in Leo, which is still ruled by the sun in Aquarius. And so there's something still very performative about what's going on today. There's still something about us being charismatic in our world, in our life. And this is this very present moment. Okay, that's Monday. On Tuesday, the moon shifts into Virgo and it will make a conjunction to the South Node. And in Virgo, the moon is ruled by Mercury, which is also still in Aquarius. And so Tuesday gets a little bit more cerebral. And as the moon conjuncts the South Node of the moon, we are recognizing what is still present from the past that we still need to devote ourselves to. As the South Node's been in Virgo for quite a while now, we've been on this journey of returning to a past practice of devotion to something that allows us to commune with God, basically, with Pisces. The South Node to me is never a drain. It is simply what is present from the past that is ripe to be brought into the present moment. Okay. And in Virgo, this has everything to do with our devotional practices, our habits, our health. And as Mercury, the ruler, is in the sign of Aquarius right now, this is a lot to do with our social health, our mental health, the way that we are organizing reality. The other thing about Virgo is that Virgo is how things actually work. Okay, being an earth sign, being ruled by Mercury, this is the linear process by which efficiency happens. Okay. And so the moon being in Virgo on Tuesday and into Wednesday, so much more of the same on Wednesday, we have a more analytical, precise way to kind of understand all this energy that's going on and really move with it. But with the South Node being there, I think it's going to feel like this might be work we've been trying to bring out of the past for a while now. The South Node, I don't think it's a drain, but I do think it can feel heavy. I do think it can feel like there's a lot of content there and it can feel stuck. But by the end of Wednesday, the moon will make a trine to Uranus right after Uranus moves direct. And so I do think we will feel a shift. I don't think it'll be an immediate slingshot of energy with Uranus moving direct on Wednesday, but I do think we will begin to think differently. We'll be able to order our logical reality a little bit differently. And then it's very interesting because the next day, Thursday and into Friday, we have the moon moving through the sign of Libra. And there's two things going on Thursday that I want to say. Firstly, that this moon in Libra is ruled by then Venus in Aquarius. And so we move from the cerebral into more of the relational, the Venus-based relational sign, which is about seeing someone as equal to you and having a relationship with them. So suddenly the cerebrality becomes much more personal, and we are filtering all of this energy for change and throwing off the precedent of the past. We're filtering this through our individual connections. On Thursday, Mercury perfects its square to Uranus. Okay, so everything I spoke about in the beginning of this video is kind of going to be this, like, really kicks off on Thursday, begins on Thursday, where Mercury, again, which is our mind, is pushing past the limit of the known. And we really realize we enter this void space of how much intellectualizing can do for us. And we just kind of have to hold our vision and feel the truth of reality through Uranus and Taurus when that square is being made, and trust that letting go of whatever perspective, whatever mindset, even before we have proof of the next thing coming, that's going to be helpful. But I think Thursday will be very nice because we'll have the moon making its trine to the sun, making its disseminating trine to the sun, which is always an opportunity. This is again very social, deeply, deeply social opportunity that's going to be present. Oh, the trine, sorry, happens on Friday. But basically, Thursday and Friday, moon in Libra will be ruled by Venus in Aquarius. And so, whatever relational residue is happening at this time will, I think, be able to be flushed out. Okay. Then by Saturday and over the weekend, we have the moon finishes its time in Libra, moves into Scorpio. So we go from Venus ruled moon to Pluto ruled moon. Okay, so we're basically moving down the layers of like intimacy from the sun on Monday, Mercury on Tuesday. What did I say? Mercury on Wednesday, Libra Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, Scorpio. So basically, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, which means it's ruled by the Pluto in Aquarius, and we are very much more deeply connected to a potentially more overwhelming and obsessive motivation. But I think this is the time over the weekend where we will be able to have a moment of kind of complete regeneration. And it is also on Saturday that Venus makes the square to Uranus. And, again, this is just where you're going to be open to the change actually being made. When Mercury squares Uranus on Thursday, I think mentally we will know what's changing. And then by Saturday, we will be open to the change. We will be feeling the change happening. Okay. Later in the weeks after, the sun will square Uranus actually right as the new moon in Aquarius happens. And then later, even later, the Mars will square Uranus. And that'll be a little bit of a different dynamic than what's happening this week. But I think there is so much going on when it comes to our mind and what we love. And the trick is going to be in letting go of identifying with what you think you are and allowing yourself to sit in the intelligence of what you feel and in the intelligence of how you rely on yourself, not to be overly self-reliant and not to be underly self-reliant, but to have a different relationship. And I think I say this because I think many people have been wanting to do the new thing for so long, try the new structure, different relationship styles, different this, that, which would be very Venus and Aquarius. But I think we're getting tired of it. I think there's a natural end to pushing the boundaries in love that I think we're going to kind of move beyond by the end of this week. Okay, that is all I have for now. I hope you have a lovely week ahead and bye for now.